Hi, it's great to have you here today. And today I'd like to address a topic or an issue that I hear quite a lot about from a lot of the organizations I work with. And it doesn't matter whether it's large organizations or smaller organizations. One question that I hear leaders ask me a lot is Michael, how do we get the right team? How do I make sure that the team of people I have are the absolute right team for the business? And I think it's a great question, a super question, because look, your business or the potential of your business or how far your business can go is really going to be determined by the quality of the people that you have there. And if you've got the wrong set of people within the organization, that organization is going to struggle to deliver on its potential. It's interesting that in his book, Good to Great, the author Jim Collins highlighted 5 things that were peculiar about organizations. And these are global organizations that are great organizations. Organizations who are not just good, they're not just average, they're actually great in terms of their performance and much more. And what he listed was a list of 5 things. He put together a list of 5 things that these organizations do better than anybody else. And the very first thing he had on the list, and not coincidental, was this. He said these organizations are great in making sure they have the right people on the bus. In fact, he said to leaders, you've got to get the right people on the bus and get the wrong people off the bus. If you want to have a great team or a great organization, you've got to make sure that you're starting with the right set of people. And that's easier said than done. So let me share with you 3 things that I think you need to consider as you're thinking about putting a team together and creating literally a crack team to help you deliver on your vision, your goals, whatever it might be. Here's the first thing you've got to consider. Identify the roles and the competencies that you require. You would be surprised how many people, and maybe SMEs do this a little bit more than large organizations, but even in large organizations, very often we're not very clear about the role. And even if we're clear about the role, we do not take enough time to think about what competencies do we really need for this role. If somebody was going to be successful in this role, what kind of competencies would they need, right? What kind of technical competencies would they need, but also what kind of behavioral competencies will they need? I think the technical is really where I'd like to start from and saying what would they need? What kind of skills would they need? And being able to make sure that we're very clear as to what it is that they need. One of the easy ways to do this is look through your organization and try to ask yourself, for people in this particular role, if the role already exists, think of all the high performers in that role and try to profile them and ask yourself, what do these guys have that others don't have? What are they very good at that other people within the organization or other people within their team do not have? And make sure you're very clear as to what competencies it is you need from people and that they need to be able to succeed in the role. Here's the second thing you've got to pay attention to, is the culture fit. So with culture fit, here's what I'm really speaking to. It's one thing to be technically great at what you do, but it's another thing to have the right set of behaviors that will merge and that will fit in with the organization. And you know, I think it's John Maxwell that talks about the fact that, you know what, you can teach for technical competence, but it's very, very difficult to change attitudes and behavior. And so when you're hiring, you've got to look at it and figure out and ask yourself the question, we're hiring for this role. Yes, we do understand these are the technical competencies, but what are the behavioral competencies? What are the kind of behaviors that we would like to see in somebody who joins us in this organization? What kind of behaviors would they need to succeed? Is this the kind of team where we need people who are high energy, people who take a lot of initiative, people who are entrepreneurial in mind? If that's what the role requires, then you've got to make sure that you hire for the role. I know an organization where entrepreneurial organization, very young organization, and they were really at a point where literally at an inflection point, a point where their growth could have gone up to like 10x. And they brought in the wrong sets of people. These were people who were technically competent, but in terms of their behavior, these were people who were a lot more steady in everything that they did. They were more administrators, and the organization really needed innovators, really needed entrepreneurs. And so you've got to be very, very clear and say, what kind of attitude, what kind of behaviors? And not just attitudes and behaviors, you've got to think about the fact of values, right? you got to ask yourself the question, do the values, or what kind of values, what are our values as an organization? And how do we make sure that the people who we're bringing in align with the values that we have? If a value that the organization has is to treat the customer as number one, you certainly want to make sure that the people who you're bringing in have that kind of mentality, because then it's easier for them to leave out your vision, leave out the mission of the organization, because their personal ethos or their worldview and the ethos of the organization are fully aligned. Here's the third thing that you've got to pay attention to in making sure you have the right team. So here's the third thing you've got to do. Invest in the hiring process. Don't just go through an interview process just to tick the box. Make sure that you're very intentional and deliberate about what you want out of that process. And part of investing in the process might be making sure that you invest enough time. Look, one of the things you find out about organizations that are great places to work, it doesn't matter whether they're small size organizations or large organizations, is they actually invest on average 3 to 4 times more resources in making sure they hire the right people. I know an insurance company in Victoria Island where, to get into that organization, you're going through almost 3 or 4 sets of interviews. And the last interview is actually with the MD. It doesn't matter who you are, what role you're coming into, you still get to relate with the MD. And when I sat down and I engaged with them, I asked them, what's this all about? And again, they said the exact same things. We're trying to make sure that not just is the person technically competent, we can assess for that. We can do different assessments to kind of understand that. But more importantly, we need to be super clear about the fact that this person can fit into a culture and this person is the kind of person who can project the image of this organization. So invest in it. Be very, very deliberate if you can, and if you've got enough resources or people within your ecosystem. Don't make the interview process just about you. Get other people who are close to you, who understand you, and who understand the business, preferably people in the business. But if it's a startup or if it's a young organization, you can leverage your board, you can leverage friends or even family that really understand you, understand the business, and people who can help you evaluate these individuals before you bring them on board as staff. And I'll tell you why. At the end of the day, we all want to make sure that we succeed, right? What you don't want to do, especially at the beginning of your organization, is to bring people in and kind of go through the trial and error process. One is that you're too young to be making too many mistakes, right? Number 2 is the fact that you probably don't have a lot of money to throw around and waste. And so you've got to make sure, so when you're bringing people on board, you really need to make sure that these people are the right people and they're filling the right roles within the organization. I hope you found some of this points useful. Again, remember 3 things you've got to be able to do. 1 is make sure you identify the roles and the competencies that are required for that role. 2 is to make sure that you're hiring for cultural fit, and that's to say that this person's behaviors and values aligns with those of the organization. And number 3 is make sure you invest in the hiring process. And I wish you the very best as you apply these principles in getting the right team.